Hello viewer, welcome to the weekly review. It's been a minute. I know we've not been able to stream for the last couple of weeks, but today we're excited to be back on air. My name is Alex Njiri, your host. Today I have a very exciting guest. Our guest today is a member of the Budget and Appropriations Committee of the National Assembly. He's also the chairman of the Parliamentary Caucus on the Economy and Business. Welcoming the Member of Parliament for Kiambu Constituency, Honorable Jude Njomo. Jude, karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
How are the people in Kiambu?
Oh, well, they're okay. Very happy that it's been raining lately.
Right.
We are farmers, so we are always excited. And there's a bit of
Wealthy
rain.
farmers, right?
Yeah. Not wealthy. People view Kiambu people to be, very wealthy. Yes, there are a few wealthy people in our neighborhood, but majority of us are struggling.
I want us to start with the state of the Kenyan economy. And it's a topic that has dominated the local scenes for the last 1-2 weeks. And I want to start with a very broad question. How healthy, Jude, is our economy?
Well, like any other nation in the world, after the COVID-19 pandemic, all economies in the world are struggling. Because, as you know, every government relies on the taxes that it gets from the people to do its operations to improve its economy. Now, this COVID-19 literally closed most businesses. There's no tourism. Traveling is limited. Many businesses have been closed. This is where government gets its taxes. So every government is collecting much lower revenue than they would have expected, and thus every economy is struggling. I'm also drawing a parallel between the COVID-19 and the economies of countries. You see, as you have seen, many people who are being killed by COVID-19 are those people who had preconditions. They had issues, they had health issues,
underlying conditions, yes.
Underlying conditions. So due to these underlying conditions, they are much weaker and they are affected much more than healthy people. So the same thing is happening to the economies. Those economies which had underlying issues would be affected much, much more than economies that were healthy. That is why in places like America, the government can afford, to give its people cash transfers because they have not been able to go to work.
Right.
They are able to continue educating their children through virtual learning. Some countries like ours, we may not be able to do that. I know there are some private schools which try to do that, but majority of Kenyans, majorities of pupils in rural economy and middle economy going down will not be able to access education. So that to me is an underlying condition that our economy was not very, very strong. But because we had a stable economy, chances are that we are going to come out of this and we'll be able to rebuild our economy and make it strong again.
Mahesh, was our economy, did we have a significant underlying conditions? Was it stable? So how stable was our economy? And, due to those underlying conditions you might have mentioned, are we now in the ICU?
Our biggest underlying condition is corruption. That when money is appropriated for certain projects, do those projects get 100% of what has been directed or what has been appropriated? That is one underlying condition that we need to deal with and deal with it in a very strong way, so that in future anybody who thinks of dipping his finger in public jar will know that he's going to get his fingers burnt. We need to address that as a matter of urgency, and I'm happy that this has been addressed in the BBI in such a way that corruption cases should be concluded within 6 months. We know some major cases, corruption cases, that have been in courts for the longest time. So what happens is that those who are involved in those corruption activities maybe are the architects of the next corruption activity.
Right.
Because they know that you will use the money that you have obtained in a corrupt in a corrupt manner to protect yourselves for a long
to
time.
sanitize
You know,
yourself,
some people have died even before the cases were concluded. So I would support any move that will ensure that corruption cases are concluded within the shortest time possible, so that when you have an opportunity to offer services to the people, and you have been entrusted with cash for certain projects, you will know that if I put my finger into this, in 6 months' time, I will either be rich or I will be in prison.
Right.
That way, people will have a tough choice to make, and I believe that will reduce the corruption rate. But like I was saying about the underlying issues, I don't think our underlying issues were such strong ones that they would make our economic collapse. We had a strong economy and a stable economy. It will withstand this this shock, and we'll be able to rebuild our country. And I'm happy about Kenyans, because Kenyans are hardworking people. So after this shock, and if we also help Kenyans to stand up again, if we make Kenyans to have loans available so that they can revamp their businesses, we shall go back to business as usual in a short time.
Great. Mheshimiwa, a couple of weeks ago, the president pretty much put into place very stringent containment measures. And of course, we know that this week, Parliament will hold perhaps virtual sittings, regarding the BBI process. I'm just wondering, as Parliament, as a National Assembly, did you think of, as parliamentarians, as representatives of the people, did you think of convening and discussing how you would help the people of Kenya navigate this containment, and especially in the zone that has been locked down?
Okay, first and foremost, you've talked about reconvening Parliament for BBI meeting. I don't think that is a factual position.
Right.
It could be some, rumors going around in social media. But as far as I am concerned, the BBI process is not complete. It's not at a stage where we can go back to the House to discuss it.
Right.
Because it's already being held, is all under a joint sitting of two committees, one for Senate and the other one for National Assembly. So after they have done the report and they are ready, that is when we can go back to Parliament and discuss it. But as of now, I don't think they have done their report. As far as the containment measures are concerned, if you remember last time, after the president announced the lockdown, there were a few measures that were put in place, to cushion wananchi against the shock that was expected. That included some reduction in taxes, pay as you earn for some people. There were VAT reduction
from 16% to 14%.
From 16% to 14%.
Income
tax was reduced, and corporate tax was reduced.
Yes.
But after all that was done, how much relief did Wajiko feel on the ground? There was no trickle-down effect at all. In fact, after a couple of months, the VAT was changed again from 14% to 16%. The same people who did not reduce the cost of living when it was cut down to 14%, when it was put back to 16%, they increased the cost of commodities. So the government had a very clear target of reducing the cost of living. But the people who were in between there did not allow that to take place. So if the same things were allowed, where the same relief were given a second time, the same thing would happen. And I remember in one of our meetings in Parliament, we really challenged the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury. And we thought that was not good advice to President, especially on the VAT and on the corporate tax, because it was just relieving the companies, but it was not relieving, it was not cushioning the wananchi at all.
The next question I would ask is, as Parliament, and also as someone who sits in bodies that are, responsible for legislative, initiatives that relate to the budget, what would have been your proposal in terms of cushioning Wanjiko? If, for example, the money that went into the VAT reduction, the money that went into the reduction of the corporate tax what would have been your proposal to the president, for example?
First and foremost, we did not have enough time even to create that advice to president. Because remember, he made an announcement and parliament was closed the following day.
Yeah.
And it was necessary because, you know, this COVID is no joke, you know. So we didn't even have enough time to sit down and discuss. But we have started now holding virtual meetings from our offices in parliament, and we are discussing some of these things in terms of agriculture. How can we help so that our farmers have reduced cost of input, so that they can even produce more to feed our nation?
Right.
Because that's the most important right now, that we become self-sufficient in food. But the other measures, like the tax relief for those who are earning below a certain tax bracket. I mean, that we can recommend to president. But we have to do this now in consultation with the treasury, because we might also reduce so much that the government is unable to have enough money, to have enough revenue to do its core activities that must be done. But maybe what else we can recommend is if you go to county level, the county government charges licenses and other taxes. And these normally are paid in June. We know maybe towards the end of the year things will be better. Maybe they can reschedule the deadline for payment of taxes from June maybe to a couple of months later, so that people will have gone through this difficult period. County governments may also waive their taxes, maybe for businesses that are done by people with disability, or people who have been, many people have been widowed, others have lost members of the family. They create a window where people can apply for exemption when they have an exceptional circumstance.
Right.
You know, that would also really help.
Right. Those are good thoughts. And in fact, I'll make sure that I make a point of making a follow-up on you. I'll give you a call in a couple of weeks and find out what you've done for Njiko in terms of parliament. That will be me doing my bit to hold you accountable as a member of parliament. So moving on from the economy.
You also remember, because apart from government doing its responsibility, there are other organizations like banks, which also people are paying loans. There are people who are running hostels. Schools have been closed, and those hostels maybe are on loan. They cannot be able to pay. So we would also appeal to commercial enterprises, to be lenient and to be humane, because there are many people who are going through very difficult circumstances, not because they did not plan well, not because they did not have a good business plan, but because this pandemic came and destroyed every plan that was in place. So it's good to be human. And if you remember, if you look at the newspapers, there have been an inordinate increase in the number of properties that are being auctioned.
I was going to come to that, yes.
Yeah, which gives a clear indication that many businesses are in serious. If you go to the registrar of businesses and registrar of companies, there have been a lot of deregistration. People are winding up their companies because they don't want to keep on paying for a company that is not working. They would rather wind it up, so when things are better, they'll go and register other companies to do the same business. So things are not good, and I think we cannot afford to continue doing things the usual way, the kawaida way, when things are not kawaida anymore.
Right, and expect different results.
And
right, fair enough, Hesh. So moving away from the economy, let's go to politics. We have seen over the last 2-3 weeks heightened political activity, and we have seen talk of new alliances in town. Just this morning, I think the papers are full of stories about alliances, and it does seem, and this was probably unthinkable a few months ago, but it does seem that there's a possibility of the former PM Raila Odinga and the Deputy President William Ruto working together in 2022. So first, what are your thoughts on that? that possible alliance? Do you see the two gentlemen working together, and what kind of alliance can they craft to accommodate both of them, knowing that they're very similar? They are both very aggressive politicians, very very ambitious as well.
Well, they always say that politics does not have permanent friends or permanent enemies.
Evidently, yeah.
And I think that is the truth. But in my own thinking, for any alliance to work, the glue that puts the people together is the objectives that they have.
Right.
What has brought these people together? When Raila said Kebake Tosha in Uhuru Park some years ago.
Right. In 2002, yeah.
In 2002. What was this that was bringing them together? It was the desire to remove Moi from power. So once this desire was established, they won, and Moi was nowhere in the play. The glue did not have any work to do.
There was no chemistry.
There was no chemistry. And they started fighting within the office. And the alliance did not work as well as they would have liked it to. So what is this glue that is bringing these two together? Is it an alliance that we will have a focused energy to take our country where we want it to go? Or is it that they just want to make sure that they win an election? Then they will win an election and they cannot be able to work together. They have been going around calling each other Mchawi, the other one calling the other one Mwizi,
Yes.
So what is this that you're going to sanitize all these abuses they have been throwing at each other?
But Mahesh, someone will argue and say that the president had an acrimonious relationship with the former PM. And now they hold hands like a couple, they work together. They are the best. They have a bromance that's evident,
See, the fight they had together, the deputy president and the president, was short term. Very, very short term.
Right.
Just during the elections when they were doing campaign. We are talking about
the former PM, you mean? The former PM and the president?
I'm talking about the current deputy president and the current president.
Yes.
The only problem they had was an election problem. That is when they were on opposite side. One was in LDP and the other one was in Kano, and they were fighting for the same seat.
Right.
Yeah, it was a very short term. They had worked in parliament together for quite some time. But I'm talking about, if you remember, the deputy president, Honorable Ruto, and Right Honorable Raila were in the same party at one time.
In ODM, yes.
In ODM.
Yeah, so between
and they campaigned together.
2010, yeah.
Yes. Then they broke away.
Yeah.
From when they broke, they have been hurling abuses at each other for over 10 years. Yeah? For over 10 years, they have been just, fighting each other. Then one morning, you tell me they are going to wake up and they are going to have a bromance and move forward.
No, but I take you back. My reference to the president and the former PM. Because the president and the former PM have actually never, at any one time, at any election, been part of the same, same alliance or same coalition. In fact, they only had a brief, a brief moment together during the referendum in 2005 when they both opposed the draft constitution then. And since 2018, since March 2018, they have had what looks like a very good rapport since they had the handshake. So if the two could be brought together, Jude, you cannot convince me that the deputy president and the former PM cannot work together. I believe in politics, and especially, you're right, you talk about having a common objective. And the common objective would possibly be what? The last bullet for Raila? Yeah? Being a transitional president.
That is what I asked you. What is this that is going to bring them together? The president and the former prime minister came together and they sat down and decided, can we look at our lives, can we look at ourselves and see what is this that has been putting us asunder? What is this that we have been fighting for? What is this that has been making even people fight because of us?
Right.
They have taken a process, and a long one, of first engaging with each other. When they knew that they have engaged enough, they went to Harambee House and had a public handshake
Yeah.
After the public handshake, there were two teams that were selected from each side of the divide.
Right.
They came together now to make the discussion bigger and ask ourselves, how can we unite our country better? How can we stop this every time we are having elections, we have to fight? A long process that emanated with the BBI. And they collected views from the whole country.
Yeah.
And now we are having BBI. How long has this taken? That is the OMO that they are using to sanitize those problems that they had.
Right.
But when you tell me that one day, Bruto wakes up, Right Honorable Raila wakes up, and they say, now we have buried the hatchet,
But
and we are moving on.
Isn't that the nature
There needs to be a process.
Isn't that the nature of our politics? In fact, if you are at Bomas during the launch of Report 2 in October.
Yeah, I was there.
You were there. I was also there. And do you remember Bishop Oginde? Do you remember his words? And Oginde is I pay reference to him because he wrote a very good article. He gave a very good sermon, which I think was also later turned into an article on the dichotomy of our politics, right after the last elections. Yeah. And at Bomas, he actually said, I would not be surprised if before 2022, the former Prime Minister and the Deputy President find themselves in the same political camp. And it's the nature of our politics that it's a bit unsettling. Because for me, and I'll refer to an interview that Mother Karod gave a while back, which was being shared. And she was being asked between the Deputy President and Raila, who would you vote for? And her answer was emphatic, I would vote for Raila Odinga. And I pay reference because in terms of the political philosophy of Raila Odinga and the political philosophy of William Ruto are like day and night. I do not see any chemistry in terms of their political philosophies. The two are very different.
Raila and Ruto.
Yes. And, if our politics was a bit more mature or developed or a bit more grown up, as so to speak, we would not have an instance where the two even sit in the same room from a political perspective. But it's what it is. This is where we find ourselves as a country. Because, again, someone would have said in 2012, again, a lot of us did not see the president, back then a deputy prime minister, and his deputy now, William Ruto, ever coming together as a team. But we saw them come together. A lot of supporters on either side had jitters, but they formed what looked like a very
It's not
solid.
only their supporters.
Yeah. I
am a member of the Pan-African Parliament, and we meet with other members from other countries in our African Parliament. And this union between the president and his main protagonist, Raila, shocked everybody. How can these people work together when they have been fighting all along?
Yeah.
In fact, even when Kibaki came to power, you remember the president was a presidential candidate on a Kanu ticket.
Yeah.
So they had never seen eye to eye in any political scenario. So this is unprecedented. It's something that maybe needs to be studied, for it to be understood. And chances of the same being replicated successfully by the same Raila and Ruto, chances are very, very, very slim. So in my own opinion.
In your opinion.
In my own opinion.
Okay, great. Now, right, Jude, shifting gears a bit here. You're a member of the Jubilee Party. So I want us to focus on your party, on Jubilee. Jubilee Party, as we stand, we don't even know whether it will field a presidential candidate in 2022. So where are you? Where are you as a party?
Kenya as a country has not had a very good history of parties, apart from KANU, which was strong, right from the independence days to maybe like 2 decades later. But from the onset of multi-party politics, parties have always been used as tools to get to power. Now, once you get to power, party becomes irrelevant. During the Moi time, you would go and have Friday function, KANU functions, holding political rallies and that kind of thing. From when Jubilee came to power, not even Jubilee. I remember in the last parliament, I was in what was the name of, I can't even remember the party, there are too many. There were some members who were in URP, others were
TNA?
PNU.
Or in TNA or
I was in
PNU?
TNA.
TNA, okay.
I was in TNA. But now the president brought all these parties together. So that we can form a strong party,
A national party.
a national party, and a strong one that would equate to the KANU of the old days. And we thought now we are going to have a country with strong parties. But we have not had any function held by Jubilee. We are just waiting for the next election. Then we look for the party tickets to get elected. Not much effort has been put to make Jubilee a very relevant party.
And vibrant as well.
And vibrant. The only time it became a little bit strong is when it was chucking members out of party because of misbehavior. That is when we remembered, oh, yes.
Were you
yes.
at risk, Mahesh?
No.
So you're one of the well-behaved ones, yeah?
Nambi, I'm well behaved, and I think also it's good for one to be realistic.
Right.
Because I don't think it's just a question of being well behaved. You know, some politics which have been going on have been very dirty. Politics of abuses, you know, politics of chest thumping. To me, I believe politics is supposed to be used to create synergies that will help us push our country forward.
Right.
Why should I do retrogressive politics? Politics that are going to divide not only leaders but even the people who have elected us to lead them. I believe in bringing people together. I believe in politics of development.
So for the first time in a very long time, I think since multi-partyism began in Kenya, Mount Kenya looks like, one, it may not have a credible presidential candidate. And secondly, it looks like Mount Kenya might be divided. So what do you think, you know, and especially with, in light of the alliances being crafted, what do you think happens to Mount Kenya in 2022?
You remind me of the Minister for Finance from Tanzania, who graced the occasion of, was it commissioning of the BBI report in Bomas of Kenya? And he showed us the main difference between Tanzania and Kenya. In Tanzania, they see each other as Duku.
Yes.
They are one community.
Correct.
They don't think much about their tribes.
Yeah.
In Kenya, your tribe plays a very key role on who you are.
Especially in politics, yeah?
Especially in politics.
Yes.
And I don't know what, I remember there was one time in Parliament, I proposed that we stop writing our tribes in our identity card. Why should I write that I'm a Kikuyu in my identity card? What value do they play? What shocked me is that there was a ceremony. Members said, no, those things must be filled. That is how deeply ingrained our tribal sentiments are. Especially
by you guys, the politicians. Because you want to use your tribe to ascend into power.
I will not disagree with you. That is exactly what happens. And that is what has put more weight on our tribal sentiments. So there are people now who are trying to make us more sensitive about our tribe. They want us to look ourselves as Mount Kenya people. Not as Kenyans, but as Mount Kenya people. So that we can be able to be mobilized in one direction. And I pray that one time, Kenya shall be like Tanzania in terms of tribal feelings.
Mahesh, that one time is not likely to be 2022 though, right?
It may not be likely, but from the way our youth are, especially who are in our urban centers, you know, these feelings are going down and at a high rate.
Mahesh, I'll take you back there. I know you're trying to skirt around my question, yeah? So I'm going to ask again. In 2022, which way Mount Kenya?
It's difficult to say that now, because they say a day in politics is a very long time.
It's a long time, yeah.
And 2022 is too far. If you remember when the BBI issue was brought, it was totally rejected by people in our region.
Yeah.
Bring it back today. They're embracing it. They have already understood it and they see it is going to help us. Yeah. So the situation that we are having now may not be the same situation that we shall have in 2022. 22.
Yeah.
And we shall have an opportunity to tell our people to choose leaders not based on their tribes, to choose leaders not based on how much they have, but to choose leaders based on what they can deliver
And what they can bring to the table.
and what they can bring.
Yes.
In terms of development.
In
Not,
terms of
you see, when you say what they have to bring on the table,
Yeah.
some people translate that or that,
To the
that
numbers,
comes
the
to their
tribal
wallet.
numbers. Okay, okay, yes, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah?
To share, that's fair enough. Now, you know, you've mentioned the BBI. So I know you're a proponent of the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020. So I want you to take us through the next steps, especially with regard to Parliament. Where are we now?
There's a saying in my place that the river is deepest where it is quiet.
Right.
So we may think that we are quiet, things are not happening. But if you remember well, the BBI bill went to the county assemblies, and the county assembly passed most of them overwhelmingly passed the bill, and it was tabled both in Senate and Kenya National Assembly, and the speakers of both houses came together, and they put the two committees together. There's now a joint sitting of Committee of Senate and Committee of the National Assembly, so that they can work together. Instead of doing two parallel processes, they do it as one. So they can do the public participation, you know, listen to the people.
Correct.
And see the way forward and do a report together, which will then be tabled in both houses. And that is what is currently ongoing. And we hope that they'll be able to finish in good time. I can say that they have not been very fast because they could have done better in terms of time. However, they are still within the allowed time. And once they are through, they table the report, then we can sit down and discuss.
What's the allowed time? 90 days? 60 days?
I think it's 90 days. I'm not very sure about it.
Okay.
But I think it's 90 days.
Right. So in about what would be your guesstimate in terms of how long it takes from today?
I think in the next 1 month we should be discussing.
Okay. In the next 1 month. Yeah. Right. So in ending, Hesh, I want you to talk to the people of Kenya. Because you sit in the house that represents the people of Kenya. And I want you to assure them that you, among others, your support for the BBI is based on, you know, what I would call national interest, as opposed to what you alluded to earlier. And I want you to have a honest conversation with them on why they should rally behind the BBI bill. This is something I do for all my guests, because first, this show supports the BBI, but this show is also a lot about educating Kenyans on what contents of the BBI are, look after their interests and helping them be able to probably understand why the BBI Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020 is a bill that proposes good things for them.
Thank you. Dear viewer, I want first to say that I support the Building Bridges initiative. Because it's an initiative that is meant to bring Kenyans together, look at things that make us separate, make them better so that we can be together. And one of them is the decision about the finances, about the revenue of this country. That most of the revenue will be going to the grassroots, right up to the ward level. So that Mwananchi, Wanjiko herself, can make a decision on what programs he would like executed in the ward level. And comparing that with the CDF, the Constituency Development Fund, most of the projects that we undertake through CDF are projects that have been selected by those people who are affected on the ground. The amount of money that goes to every ward in terms of CDF is even less than what will be coming through to Ward Development Fund. So we will have better local roads. We will have better choices of what we prioritize as the ward people. What is this that we prioritize that we want on the ground? And this way, people will feel that they are part and parcel of development of their area. And I think this will have a long-term impact on the way we do our business. If you are coming from, say, a pastoralist community, you would like more water pans in your area so that your cattle does not go far to get water. If you come from farming community, maybe you want better storage of your harvest, and you can agree to build stores and godowns. That would be upon you to decide. So to me, BBI will be a turning point for this country, and it will bring even more development. There are other many advantages that BBI is bringing, but we may not have enough to discuss them. But BBI will be a turning point for the development of this country, and that is why I support it, and that is why I urge you also to support it. Thank you.
2022, what are you eyeing?
Well, I've always proudly represented the people of Kiambu, and I've always said that I'm the servant of the people of Kiambu.
Right. Because
I have learned to listen to them and to implement what they want implemented. And from what I have listened to them so far, is that they would like me to continue doing the work that I'm doing for them.
Okay.
There are some who are telling me, oh, you go for Senate, oh, you go for governor, you know.
Yes.
But majority of my constituents would like me to continue serving them as the member of parliament. And I'm not going to argue with them.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Good luck, Muhesh.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll probably get the opportunity to host you again on this show before the elections.
I'll be glad.
And we'll probably talk a little bit more about the politics, the political alignments, BBI perhaps. When you go back to Kiambu, you know, pass my greetings to the great people of Kiambu and tell them we love them. Okay. And I must also thank you on behalf of Kenyans for the good work you've done in the National Assembly, and especially with regard to the interest cap rate, interest rate cap, law. I know maybe a few people might not know that you are the person behind the bill, you know, that led to the interest rate cap, but which unfortunately did not work as we had probably anticipated. But as Kenyans, we remain eternally grateful for
it worked for I think 3 years.
Yes.
And it put discipline in that sector.
Yes.
And today they know that
the rates are much lower.
If they tried it again,
yes,
we can still go back and do the same
rates
business.
are much, in as much as it was repealed, the rates are still much lower than they were when it was first put into effect. So it has worked in that context there. Yeah. And we remain grateful for that. And we look forward to you, hopefully when you get re-elected in 2022, that you'll also bring more motions into parliament that will be for the benefit of Wanjiku and her spouse. We don't talk about Wanjiku's spouse, do we? Brilliant. Viewer, that has been a conversation with the Honorable Jude Njomo, the MP for Kiambu Constituency, who is also a member of the Budget and Appropriations Committee of the National Assembly and the chair of the Parliamentary Caucus on Economy and Business. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next week, same time. Cheers. Thank you.